Hi, so we are going to discuss in this video warm-up routines. So if you watched the previous video, we were discussing open A string practice as well as vibrato, different types of vibrato practice if you're more of an intermediate player. Okay, so the next step I use, which is bread and butter, and which my teachers really drilled into me, was basically a book of exercises, which never know how to say this guy's name. I call him Schradieck, but you could call Schradieck or Schradieck or whatever it is. Anyway, his School of Violin Techniques, book 1, is the best. If you just do this over and over and over again, and at least do like 10-15 minutes of it every day, I promise you your left hand will be flying. And it's really to promote left hand dexterity in all different types of positions and configurations. So think about it as your bread and butter, okay? So the purpose of doing these types of technical exercises, rather than, you can learn them through repertoire. I never understood why to do technique. I always just wanted to do repertoire, and then I found out that repertoire was actually knowing rep without doing the technical foundational exercises was kind of pointless, because I couldn't execute what I wanted musically without the technique. So I would really highly recommend doing these every day. So my job today is I'm going to walk you through how to do that. Okay, so I've got the book here in front of me. So you can have it memorized, but basically you just choose certain metronome marking. So let's just choose 60 for right now. 74 right now. Let's go to 60. Okay, super slow. Okay, so it's all written legato, it's all written one bow, but we're gonna do it in 4 different bows, okay? So it's gonna look something like this. Okay, so I'm not going to go on, but basically that's it. So what you should know about these is that you can increase the tempo. I see a lot of students who do this, and they'll always kind of come up with a funny bowing pattern in the middle of it. Try to, as best as possible, try to just do 4 bows. You could do 2 bows, so you could do sorry, I'm a bit flat. The other thing is, let's talk a little bit about left hand. Okay, so this is great exercise for organizing the left hand. You really want to make sure that your fingers are right above those notes, because if they're not, what ends up happening is you kind of have this wave hand, okay? There is no one right way to play violin, but I will highly suggest, instead of having your hand way out here, if you can bring it parallel to the fingerboard, then your notes are going to be right above where they should be. So if you can see it from this angle. Also notice that my forefinger is right above there. If you have the forefinger will have a tendency to really want to stick with the third finger. You want to try and avoid that, okay? So because if it keeps on doing this every time you play fourth, it's going to sound really clunky, okay? So try and have it right above. Sorry. Cool. And I'm going to show you from the other angle just so you really know what I'm talking about. Good. Another really awesome exercise that I like to do with students is to get, let's see if I have it. I usually get a pen and I stick it in the 4th finger. If you're finding a hard time playing 4th finger in time, get a pen, stick it in there. Try and do it like that. That'll keep you honest. It's gonna sound bad, but that'll keep the fourth finger from constantly going back. Okay, so once you've done that, you just up the tempo. So you just increase it. So let's increase it by 10. Let's go to 70, 72. One other thing to really note is try and pay attention to the left hand articulation. So you want dee 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 dee. If you find yourself it's sounding sloppy or the transition between two notes is like messy, like that, then you're not doing it correctly. So really try and quick release, and articulation really comes from releasing a little bit of the hand. You get a kind of a ping. Okay, so for me, I do Schradieck, and I usually do that for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you look at the book, the whole book, it's quite a lot of music, but if you could just go through and you memorize that, you're getting your left hand really acquainted with like a C sharp, playing a C sharp a bajillion times, or a D, and it just gets your left hand really comfortable. Seems pointless, but it will pay off in the long run. If you scooch down to the second exercise, the second big major Roman numeral exercise, it's quite tricky. So it's fourth finger. And that's tricky because it's a half step. And this is really dealing with finger blocks. So if you're a beginner, this is a bit more advanced. Anyway, we have this kind of, I don't know if it's an alien sign, that kind of a finger block going on right here, okay? So that's really important to think and keep in mind. It's very difficult to do that big of a gap between the two of those fingers. So it's quite tricky, but that's a really good exercise for making sure that your fingers are in the right steps. Cool, so after I do all of the Schradieck, then I usually move on to shifting. And shifting would be through, I usually use the scale book Sevcik, Opus number 8, okay? So you can get this on IMSLP for free, so it's really quite a deal. So I usually start with the G string. Yeah, you can see I'm quite rusty on it. So this is a really amazing exercise that my teachers in grad school made me do a bajillion times. And it really helps you become fluent. So if you're finding that shifting is a really big problem for you, especially with intonation, which shifting or most intonation problems are due to shifting, or bow, the bow, then this is a really good exercise to be doing. Just treat it like working out. So I usually do that for a little bit. And the great thing about this book is that it takes you through a bunch of different exercises. So if you skip on ahead, it goes through second position, which you might be difficult, but that's quite good to do. A good tip for shifting as well is when you shift, try and shifting on the old finger, okay? So I usually use my first finger as a base to promote, to really solidify the next position I'm shifting to. So for example, if I'm shifting to second position on the fourth finger and I have to start with a 1, and I have to go to the E, I'm going to do this. A to B, then to E. And I do that really slowly, so. And then practice that slowly, and then I take out that quote-unquote ghost note. And then I'm there. And that same principle applies to if you're going from anywhere high, just use that. Make sure that you know where your first finger goes first. Okay, so that's a really good warm-up routine with regards to your shifting. So I hope that is helpful. Happy practicing!